Hi, I'm Barbara Ireland, and life can be challenging. You know that already. But there's I think something in each of us that thinks, seriously? Does it have to be this hard? I mean, we could see how our life could be, doing work that's creative and inspiring, and in a relationship that's heart-centered and passionate, and definitely not worrying about money all the time. And that's our vision of our greatest potential, you could call it. And then we compare that potential with our actual day-to-day reality, and it's like, but I feel drained all the time. I'm struggling financially. Why do I keep having the same arguments with my partner? And my job, it just kind of sucks. And when we start noticing that we're off from our vision, even if it's just in one area, it feels awful. And it's confusing. It's like, why can't I get this working? Well, a few years ago, I was in that space. I'd recently left a marriage. I was confused about my purpose. And I remember, a friend took a video of a bunch of us. And when I looked at the videos, I was like, oh my God, I look like a zombie. I mean, I was kind of checked out, and it was disturbing. And it wasn't long after that, maybe just like 3 months, that I had my near-death experience. And how that all came about was, okay, so I'm in this dark place in my life. And one day I thought, maybe I could use one of those camps where you test your boundaries and you develop your courage and find out you're stronger than you ever thought you were. So I signed up for a camp like that, and it was super intense. The first thing we had to do when we got there was sign a liability waiver that basically said, if you're maimed or if you die, it's not our responsibility. I'm like, what? But I was in the middle of nowhere, so I signed it. So every day I faced huge fears. And yes, I did develop courage, and I did find out that I was capable of really extraordinary feats. So it was a great idea for me to go. And then on the last day, I accidentally pushed past my physical ability and stamina, and I had a near-death experience. And this whole ordeal lasted about 5 hours. I was laying under a tree, slowly losing feeling in one body part after another. And until I was like finally basically just a head laying there under a tree. And during this time, I was being taught about mind loops, for lack of a better word, which are basically repetitive negative thoughts. And I found out that it was mind loops that were holding me back from my joy, from my greatest potential. And mind loops show up in people's lives as repetitive thoughts about not being good enough, or not being able to earn money, not being able to lose weight, or feeling you're never going to find someone to love. And they can also come in the form of resentments about something that happened in the past, maybe towards a parent or a friend or a partner. And they can appear as these really disturbing fantasy movies about things that could happen in the future that you don't want to have happen, but for some reason you can't stop the mental movies. And all these forms of mind loops take tremendous energy to feed. I mean, you're feeding the very thing that's already draining you, instead of using your precious life energy to nurture you and create the life that you really want. So when I came back from this experience, I researched everything I could about mind loops and how to interrupt them and actually replace them, kind of like reprogramming my mind. And I tell you, everything changed after that. My life is so vibrant now. It's exciting, it's inspiring, it's filled with love. And I do not go to that zombie place anymore. And I want to share with you some techniques to help you interrupt your mind loops. So I created a 3-part video series. And in each part, I cover a specific mistake that I see smart people making that drains their energy, puts wrinkles on their face, and I'm so not kidding about that, and sidetracks them from realizing their greatest potential. So let's dive in. The first mistake smart people make is that they worry. And I'm specifically going to talk about the type of worrying that's focused on other people. So, quick story. I know a woman named Linda who has an 18-year-old son, and she was constantly worrying about him because she'd found some drugs in his room, and that was like this ultimate mind loop trigger for her. And she worried about everything from he's not ever going to go to college and make something of his life to he's going to end up in jail, to I'm a failure as a mother, he's not going to love me anymore. And these are hard. I mean, she was living so bad on this that she started getting seriously depressed. And she started making mistakes at work because she couldn't focus. She was having a terrible time sleeping because she'd wake up with these intense worries. And on top of everything, all that stress was making her visibly age, because stress appears in the body, right? That's where the wrinkle part comes in. In her own words, she said, "My forehead was getting reamed." Well, eventually Linda got her son into rehab, and she had all these hopes from getting better according to what she wanted for him. But things don't always work out the way we hope they're going to do, and he ended up leaving rehab. And that's when she signed up for my course on mind loops. So quickly I got her going on one of my favorite techniques that is so simple and so effective against chronic worrying. And she worked this technique. And it wasn't long before she was able to actually let go of all that worrying and just allow her son to figure things out for himself. And wow, when she stopped worrying, so much stress lifted and she was able to take care of herself again. And actually, he ended up going back to rehab on his own. So you want to know the technique? It's called the name game. And if you've heard about this before, maybe in one of my other videos, perhaps you're being reminded of it again right now for a reason. So here's how it works. When we start worrying about someone or anything, we kind of become the worry. We start living in the future in our heads, imagining this negative outcome being played out. And the feeling of it, the fear, penetrates our body and our spirit in such a way that it's like we're one with the worry. And the name game pulls you and the worry apart into two pieces. You're not the worry anymore. You can look at it more objectively. And when we separate ourselves from a worry, we suddenly come back to the present moment. Our brain actually gets more blood flowing to it so we can think better. We release stress. We breathe deeply again. It makes a huge difference. So here's the name game technique. Whenever you start worrying about something, first, you got to catch yourself in the act. Awareness is key. Then you're going to name the worry, like, that is a worry. Or, hello, I'm looping again. Or, oh, that's my mother hen voice again. Whatever you want to call it. And when you name the worry, you actually detach from it. Sometimes I also like imagining going into my brain and feeling the heat that's building up from all those neurons firing off to create this worry. So to cool things down in there a little bit, I picture installing a little fan in my head. And I know this sounds totally ridiculous, but it actually helps. For one thing, it makes you aware of how much energy you're using to create this annoying thought. And the image of the fan in your head is kind of funny, so the whole situation loses its seriousness and it makes it easier to just let it go. Now, the second half of this technique is really important. Once you've separated yourself from the worry by naming it, now you want to immediately divert your attention away from the subject of your worry and onto something that grabs your interest, something you love doing. And that could be a project, like for me it's writing or music. Or it could be something physical like dancing or going to the gym. It could be hanging out with a friend, reading an engrossing book, or watching a really great movie. And we need to keep our minds busy. So if you don't consciously move your thoughts onto something that you want to think about, it's really easy for your mind to just go right back to the worry. You will feel some immediate relief when you do the name game. But if you want the deep change, like what Linda experienced, then you do this process as often as you can. It's because you're not just playing a mental game here. You're actually changing your neural pathways, your physiology. And the more you do this, the more it's actually going to change your thoughts. And a few extra thoughts that may help you with changing your perspective about worrying. I know firsthand that it can be really difficult to let go of, just allow someone to go through a horrible time or what we perceive as horrible for them. And it may feel like you're being compassionate and caring by worrying about them because, you know, you're thinking about them, right? But if you think about it, we don't know the bigger picture of anybody's life. I mean, we barely know our own bigger picture, right? And sometimes we may think we know what's best for someone, and I imagine that's even more so if you're a parent. But all of us have our own things we need to learn and our own timing for learning them and our own methods. I mean, if you look at it this way, if we worried about every toddler who was trying to learn to walk and we thought, oh my God, what if they fall? I mean, would that worrying help the toddler? Would it make you feel any better about their learning process? No. In my personal opinion, the best thing we can do when we're feeling worried about someone is to send them love. Send them all the hopes and joy, everything that you want for them, for their lives. Whether that's in the form of a prayer or a meditation or just imagining them happy, all those things work. And on a quantum level, sending them a loving thought is 1,000 times more helpful than any worrying could ever do. And you preserve your lovely face of unnecessary wrinkles at the same time. So here's your challenge. 1, state an intention. I intend to be aware of any time I begin to worry about someone or something. 2, catch yourself in that act of worrying. And the earlier in the worrying process that you catch yourself, the better. 3, give the worry a name. 4, turn that little fan on in your brain to cool down those neurons. 5, now that you've unhooked yourself from the worry, consciously divert your thoughts away from it and towards something that really grabs your interest. 6, the last thing is notice you're feeling better. Become aware of how your energy has increased. You may even detect a little humor now. And when that happens, you know you're detaching from it. And remember, detaching does not mean that you don't care. When you detach in a healthy way, you're allowing both you and the other person to live your lives with dignity, honoring both of your paths and both of your ways of growing and learning. Lastly, I would love to hear your stories, your comments, your questions. So post them below this video and I will answer anything that you ask. And I'm Barbara Ireland. Change your thoughts and you change your world.